Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Dr. Soumalya Mukherjee, co-founder of Tan90 or Tan90, changing the cold chain in India. Dr. Soumalya is a graduate of NIT Durgapur and has been a PhD scholar at IIT Madras. He has served as a pre-doctoral researcher at Indian Institute of Science and founded his venture in 2019 named as Tan90. Am I spelling it correctly, Dr. Soumalya?
Yeah, Tan90. So it's basically a trigonometric value that we all learned in our school days.
Okay. Dr. Soumalya, a very warm welcome to ELI. And I'd request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Thank you, Priya. Thanks a lot. I think you have already introduced my journey till now. So, hi everybody. My name is Soumalya, and I am one of the co-founders of Tan90. We are, as a part of Tan90, as a team, we are trying to solve one of the major problems in India, which is cold chain logistics. And primarily, we are trying to solve the problem at the grassroots level, at the farmer's end level, so that one of the major idea is to empower the farmers, not by giving them subsidies or not by giving them the direct contact to mandis, but also to empower them to sell their products directly to the customers at a very high quality there. So that is what we try to do. And so before joining, before starting Tan90, I was a PhD scholar at IIT Madras, and I was doing my PhD in biotechnology and chemistry. And I'll be very honest, I never had the idea that I'll become an entrepreneur one day. I always wanted to stay in academia, and that is how I had planned my ways in that fashion. After my BTech, I went to IST, didn't take up a job, and then I went to for doing my PhD in from IIT Madras. And even when I joined my PhD journey, I thought of doing a postdoctoral, maybe later on post my graduation. But one thing led to another, and then here I am. So in the entrepreneur world, which I'm enjoying, and I hope that I'll enjoy for the next at least the rest of my lifetime.
Okay, Dr. Soumalya, tell us more about your venture. What are the services it provides, and if there are any products? What is the size of the company now and scale of operations?
Sure. So we work on portable cold storage solutions, and we provide the small-based cold storage solutions to our users, be it farmers or be it businesses. And when we started off, there is a huge problem with cold storage. Everybody knows that. When you talk about when we see newspapers, we see that there is a shortage of cold storages. Government is actually pumping money to set up cold storages. Even as I speak today, yesterday, the government of Ministry of Food Processing Industries has given a green signal to set up cold storages in a few states, including Tamil Nadu, the state which I am based out of as of now. But the whole problem is that the cold storage solution that we have till now is centralized, which means you have a central location of a brick and mortar cold storage. The farmer goes there, stores their product, and then at a certain point they take out the product out and then sell it. The problem which comes off with this centralized cold storage is that not all the farmers get access to the cold storages. So what happens is that government helps in setting up the cold storages, but they do not help in running those cold storages. So at the end point, what happens is that many of cold storages remain unoperated, and they turn into a normal warehouse. And this is something which actually happened in Tamil Nadu, in Trichy district. And then when the lockdown happened, the situation became more grim, because again in Tamil Nadu, it's about 1/3 of the cold storages were not operated, but about 500 tons of fishes were being wasted. So that is a big problem. That's a big gap. So we are trying to solve that gap, and for that we are trying to come up with portable cold storage units. And with this, we are helping our farmers or our users to transform any room into a cold storage room, or any vehicle into a cold storage vehicle. So with this idea, we started our operations in January 2020. And from then on, we have customers spread across 11 states in the country. And some of our major clients are, Department of Horticulture, Government of Tamil Nadu, Government of Kerala, Murugappa Group. So these are some of our major clients that we have worked with. The team has grown stronger by the day, and when we started off, we were about 3 co-founders, but right now the team is about 6 people strong, with people helping us to build the Tan90 as a brand. As far as business development is concerned, we are working on different projects as well, different new projects, so that we can reach out to farmers much more efficiently. So that is everything about Tan90 as of now.
Okay. Dr. Soumalya, tell us about your initial journey, like when you started and how you started. How did you find your co-founders and the initial days?
Correct. So as I told before, I never had the idea, or never even thought of that I'll become an entrepreneur. One thing that I understood is that when I was doing a PhD, is that we were doing some research for the good for the society, but they were getting stuck at the publishing of the papers, and the projects were staying at the lab level itself, even though we work on a wide variety of projects. So at one point I thought of, to really create an impact on the society, it has to be, executed at the ground level. And that gap between the lab to the execution to commercialization is a huge gap. And that is something which people call as a value of depth if you talk about entrepreneurship. So bridging that value of depth is very important. And we had been lucky with the support of our institute, IIT Madras. There were various supports that were given out to our startup. And body in IIT Madras, the pre-incubation cell of IIT Madras. And what they do is that they identify student startups and support them with a very small amount of fund. But what is the best thing about this, Niman, is that they give you the industry exposure, they give you very good mentorship, and the transition that you make from an academician to a businessman, that thing actually gets transformed within a period of 8 to 8 months. So basically, that is a very crash course of an MBA that we do with Nirman to take our product from the lab to the ground. There is another program in IIT which is with the name of Gopala Krishna Deshpande Center, Incubate program, in which you go out on the field and you talk to the customers and you have a very early customer validation stage. So one of the major wrong idea about entrepreneurship is that whatever idea that we come up with can be commercialized. Actually, that is not the case. The market, there has to be a market need for it, and most of the entrepreneurs actually can understand that at a much later stage, by which they have spent a lot of money or spent a lot of resources, most importantly their time. So GTC actually de-risks that factor. The incubate program de-risks that factor, and we could pivot at a very early stage, for example. So as far as the entrepreneurship journey was concerned, we started off from a third year. The thing started off with winning a competition in our college, and one thing led to another, and then we started incorporating our company from 2019, and then things got serious, and then we started our operations from 2020 January. As far as the co-founders are concerned, it is one of the major steps while forming a startup, what I believe, because finding co-founders is like finding a life partner. It's like you have to stick up and form a very cohesive team with complementary skill sets. That is very important, and so that you can get along with them pretty well when things don't go good. And I can assure you, entrepreneurship journey, the things don't go good 90% of the time. So you have to always have a very cohesive team. and I have been lucky in that aspect. One of my co-founders is my lab mate, with whom I shared a lab. So I used to, when during a PhD, we spend, a lab is the first home, or hostel is the second home, basically. So we used to spend most of the time along with him. And actually, when you spend such a long time with the person, you get to know him. So you get to know his strengths, his weaknesses. He also gets to know my weaknesses. So that is how we started off with. One of my co-founders is my lab mate, and one of my other co-founder is from my second home, which is from the hostel. So he's my hostel mate. So again, it's very important that we understand on the personality level, and as far as the skill set is concerned, on technicality level is concerned, all three are very quite strong on the technical aspect. But there are some ways or some regions where as far as the personality traits are concerned, I lack on something, my co-founders comes and fills up with it. So that is something that I've been very lucky with. And apart from this, when we expanded our team, for example, our business development person, our R&D person, we are really lucky to have them as well on board. Mr. Kushnaman and Mr. Magesh. So one thing that we have been really lucky is that they do not take their job description as the only job description. So they have come on board as a as a fellow founder itself, because as a founder you have to do all the things, and they do help us do all the things. So we have been lucky. I've been lucky in that aspect as well.
Okay. Soumalya, speaking of co-founders, what happens is at the very early stage, there is a lot of apprehensions, and sometimes we disagree on the ideas. There is a lot of skepticism about whether to go ahead. So it's basically trusting on each other to uh, you know uh, be on the same boat for a really long time, and nobody is certain about the other person. So how do you deal with such a situation? And when there are multiple co-founders, I believe it becomes a lot easier, because team looks genuine and realistic. But when you have let's say two co-founders at the beginning stage, it is a lot more difficult. I'm pretty sure you started with two co-founders, if I'm not wrong. So can you tell us, can you throw some light on those kind of environments?
Correct. So what I personally believe is that if arguments are happening, that's a good thing, which means your team members or your co-founders are actually thinking for the product or for the company. And one thing that is really important at the very initial stages is actually perseverance and passion. And actually passion is one thing which we underrate. And we talk about it a lot, but you see passion from the action. So if argument is happening as far as the decision is taking is concerned, it shows passion. It's in a positive way. Sorry. What I believe is that, as I told, we started off with two co-founders, and as I told, and when we started off, we had 5 people on board. We had to we had to say goodbye to 2 of our friends as well. They dropped out from the journey because it's pretty tough on the initial few days. And as far as taking the decision is concerned, it is always about de-risking. So nobody knows whether what is the outcome for a decision will be happening. So because the market is so dynamic and so volatile, so the only way that you can do is to do a de-risk analysis before that, and that is one thing we do regularly. We used to have group meetings. Initially we used to have a lot of fights. We used to develop a product, and then at some point of time we used to deploy the product, in the market. But one thing that I would really suggest people who want to start up is that execution is the key. Planning takes, planning is important, but if you have planned something, please execute it, because nobody knows what is the outcome, what will be the outcome, because even if you have a very good market fit, you can never understand all the risk points. So do a risk analysis, and we did that, all those aspects on our very beginning stage. But yeah, I mean, once you know work with co-founders on a very small scale, on a very high time gap, you understand what is the what is the thought process of each of your co-founders. So then what happens at a later stage as well is that making decisions becomes much more easier as compared to the initial days. But you are entirely correct. In the initial days, things take things becomes violent. It's a rough sea. Nobody knows whether it is going to take place or whether it is going to fly. Nobody knows that. And I think at that point it's all about perseverance. And as I'm talking about, I gave an example of two people dropping out during a journey. It is about the perseverance that I was talking about. And if you really feel that the market needs your product, it's not necessarily that you love your product. Nobody cares if you love your product. Everybody cares whether the market loves your product. So if you feel that the market loves your product, it's really important that you stick with to your idea no matter what. And there will be lows. 90% of your time is lows. You think and think, you lose your sleep. Now all these things happen. But at the end of the day, it's about execution. That's what I said.
Okay. Dr. Soumalya, let's talk about recruitment. When you bring new people on board, be it co-founders or be it investors or be it employees, what is the one single aspect you see in a person when you or for that matter your company sees in a person when they're onboarded? What kind of people do you onboard?
Sure. I think the most important characteristic that we really see is stepping up to the challenge. Because if you really see, what the place that we are operating in, we are operating in a rural segment, and there is a gap in the rural segment. And to be very frank, this gap has been for a lot of years, for about 30, 40 years. So the reason why the people have not solved this challenge, there has to be some very good reason, because the thing is hard. So until and unless somebody is stepping up to the challenge, it is really hard for some for other company to push the product into the rural segment where people can use it. So one thing that we really see is what are the most challenges that they have, challenging job that they have faced, and that is what we try to cover in our interview process as well. We ask our team members who are trying to who are interested in joining our team is what are the most challenging experience that they have and how they have solved it. Because if they have solved that problem, and if they're not making up, they can actually go down to the basic problem that was there. So we try to dig deep into the problem that they solved. And if we really feel that he or she has stepped up to the challenge, that's a very good green signal for us. The second thing is that we do not, and we emphasize it on this, that we do not pay any priority or any emphasis on college degrees, not at all, because given this stage here, we know that everybody is skilled. Given the given the internet access and everything, everybody is skilled. So it's all about temperament. And at the initial stages of a startup, it's about not giving up, and perseverance is something that we really look out for. We try to see whether that person has worked on different projects, what are the different projects that they have worked on, whether they can fit themselves pretty easily, whether their agility is something which we gauge, if they can fit very easily into different segments pretty easily. So that is there are few things that we really look out for. As for investors, it's very important to have to keep the company and the investors on the same boat. So the vision has to match. So if, for example, we are a for-profit company but with a social cause, so it is really important to have investors also who try to give out to give it back to the society. All investors does that, but some investors do it on a much more larger scale. So we try to have them on board. But as far as as we are concerned, it's all about selling. So we have to sell our vision either to our employees, to investors, to our customers. Unless we are doing that, nobody's coming on board. So at the end of the day, the onus lies actually on us to sell the vision to everybody.
Understood. Soumalya, tell us what are the challenges you faced along the way while building and growing this venture?
I feel, one of the major challenges that we face is, since we work on a rural segment, nobody prepares you how to work on a rural segment until and unless you are from a farming background. And none of our, three co-founders have a very good farming background. Rajnikant, one of my co-founders, has some bit of a farming background, but when you to go to a farm, the outset is entirely different to what we see or read in the newspapers or the books. So there are many psychological issues. For example, people are, you have to have somebody who talks the local languages. You have to have somebody who who stays in the villages for days on end, understand their process, and it takes actually time. And this is something which I feel, the psychological barrier to accept new challenges, new technology, is something that we face consistently on the rural segment. But one thing that we have understood is that we have to work with farmers and see them as businessmen. And when we start looking to farmers as businessmen, and we give them the value that any product gives out to them, they are open to take up this technology, new products. The One of the major reasons that we have seen is that many people tell that farmers, they want to uplift their lives and everything. It's nothing. It's not that sort of that we are doing any favor to the farmers. We have to see them as a stakeholder there itself. And that is something which in the whole scenario, in agri-tech scenario, this mindset has to change. And until unless we are changing that, there is a trust issue between the farmers and the startup. So so until unless we bridge this trust gap, that it is really difficult to scale. And that is something which are one of the major challenges that we have faced. Given this lockdown, again, it was a sudden blow onto their face. It was getting like, punched into the face with all the operations halting in the first few months. So yeah, I mean, and that is what, and I think the team actually comes in. That's what we're talking about, agility. You have to adapt to the situation. So that is something, one of the problems that we faced in the initial few months of a lockdown. But thanks to God and thanks to our team, we have been quite agile, and we fitted quite well, and then we jumped right into the next month itself.
Okay, now we will get into some interesting questions. Speaking of lockdown and systemic faults, tell us what is your view on. When I ask this, I'm assuming you are very closely linked with the rural India, and you see the ground level the activities, and also you meet a lot of people. What do you think people's perception is towards our economy, towards the country? And towards future, and uh, what as per you, so let's discuss this question first, then I'll come to my next question. What is people's view about the economy and country and future?
Correct. So I think people's view are made out of what they are fed into. So if they are exposed to contents which are always negative, people will have a negative mindset. But if people are fed into positive feedback, people start thinking about solutions. One of the major things is, in the recent times, people are all, gung ho about the GDP getting, negative, contracting by about 23%, given the lockdown. But one thing that we have to really understand is that, it's we have been a service-based economy. And one really good thing that has happened, given the rift between India and China, or given the lockdown phase, is that we are slowly moving into a manufacturing hub, which is really important. Now now with this movement, we are taking care of the supply side. It is really important that we work on a demand side as well, because even if you make products, if somebody is not there to consume, it is not going to, no, nothing is going to, there is a shortfall in the demand and supply. And that is where I think, no, I think people have to step up, for example. And given this lockdown, it had a very strong, very strong effect on the economy. The reason is that many people lost their jobs, and if people lose their jobs, they lose their buying power, and then the demand supply gap actually gets altered out. So the first thing, I think the first thing is to create new jobs. And how do you do that? The one of the ways to do that is to empower entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs at the end of the day are the people who give jobs to people. And this is where a large amount of support has to come in, be it from incubators or accelerators, government bodies, investors, the investors, and once that flow starts, and once you have a good product market fit, for example, then things will fall into place. I feel, see, we faced this problem before also. When the economy shrunk in 2004, it shrunk pretty badly, but we jumped back to our old game. And I feel, I think it is really important to stay positive with these days. And I think the economy will actually again jump back. And one of the best thing that has happened is that India as a country has been turning towards a manufacturing hub, which I think, before this lockdown, we didn't pay any attention to it. And, we are basically a service-based company. And being a manufacturing-based company, you get into, you hire people who have a diploma degree, for example, or engineering degrees. So now what happens, the streams which lost their shine, which was a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer, they are getting their they are getting their shine back, because we are moving into a manufacturing hub as well. So I think the first thing that is to be done is to empower people who give the job. Then things will actually fall into place.
Okay. So was it people's sentiment or was it your sentiment?
It is my sentiment. It is my sentiment. So on the people's sentiment is, I think there is a huge outcry, because there are very few jobs as of now available. But having said this, there are some sectors in which jobs are there. For example, logistics, supply chain, agriculture sector, education sector. So these are the few sectors which are seeing a good amount of job opening. And I think if a person has a certain skill set, finding a new job is not going to be a big problem. Having said this, also, we have been observing a huge amount of reverse migration as well. When the lockdown started, the labor migration happened back to their hometown. But if you really see how the railway tickets are being sold out, people are anticipating that it is a reverse migration. So things will take time, what I feel is that people have lost the patience, primarily because after stuck in their homes for 8 months, which is really, really challenging. And then now they're stuck in their homes, and maybe their job are at stake, or they are not getting a new job. People are getting a bit anxious. So I think, it is the anxiety that's getting the better of the people.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll come to my next question. I'll mention certain facts that I've been hearing. May not be true, but this is what I hear. Our country's GDP is shrinking, and there are sectors like you mentioned, construction and manufacturing. These sectors have shrunk like anything. Also, there are sectors which are not coming back for good. For example, newspaper is such a industry that is stopped operating altogether. So uh, it, there is no denying that India has lost a lot of traction. For government, what would you suggest, since you look India from a ground level? For government, what would be your suggestions to again fuel the economy and reach the milestones that our prime minister had set, doubling the size of the economy? What would be the steps you would recommend?
I think, now, given the situation, it is really becoming a very hard job for our prime minister to stand up to his promise. And I think, see, there is a mathematical explanation why the GDP has shrunk. When the lockdown happened, everything was switched off. The consumption has reduced. So when the consumption has reduced, there is no point in manufacturing things. So it's a no-brainer that GDP will shrink. And why the GDP has shrunk by such a large amount for India is because India was one of the emerging economies. So we were at a peak, and then suddenly we saw a dip. So we see that huge chunk of depression. Having said this, I think what the government, for example, is doing is they have given up as a fund, which is known as agriculture infrastructure fund. What they are trying to do through that infrastructure fund is that they are trying to set up infrastructure at the ground level, at the farm level, which is really good at one point. But I also feel is that uh, you know, it's time to see new solutions coming in. What I told you, in the few minutes back is that if you are setting up a cold storage, it's time to see what are the drawbacks of the cold storages. Why, even if you have set up a cold storage, still why are we facing a 4 million rupees loss every year for food wastage? Which means those cold storages are not working, or there is some problem with the setting up of the cold storages on the operationally. So it is really important to go back and ponder onto this drawback, and see that centralized approach is not actually working. We have to work on a decentralized approach, and it will and I think it's not about the money right now. It's about channelizing the money. So if we channelize the money into things which will give off fast results. For example, in addition to cold storages, it is really important to set up processing units, processing plants. And this processing plants has to be modular. You cannot have again a centralized processing plant wherein the farmers have to travel all the way down there. It is not going to work again. So I think it's about channelizing the funds that you have, the government has set up, and the onus lies on all the agriculture universities, all the stakeholders, incubators, accelerators, to channelize the fund to startups or to entrepreneurs or to businesses which are working on a modular aspect, which can empower a farmer at the ground level. So that is something that I feel the government should actually think about, or the stakeholders should think about. And apart from that, what they have done is really great. Coming up with an agriculture infrastructure fund. This is something which is happening after a long time. And I'll be very honest with this. We have been waiting for this type of a support from the government for a long time, and coming at this stage, wherein we are facing some external issues. This is really commendable. And I think yesterday itself, the government has issued cold storages in different states. And no, this is, I think, they're setting the first priorities right. So one thing the government has really done really good is the Inam, the the Inam platform wherein the farmers can come on board and can sell their products online. So this is something which we have to empower the farmers and or the people at the ground level. And these things, I think, Priya, is that this is takes time, and we have to be a bit patient, because to see the fruits of this implementations will actually take 5 to 6 years. So it is just the beginning, and I think we have to be a bit more patient on this aspect.
Okay, coming to my last few questions, we are almost up with the time. My second last question would be, how would you compare entrepreneurship with a full-time job?
Okay, so entrepreneurship is a full-time job. So one thing that I have understood is that no, it is your baby. The project is your baby. So you think about it all the time. So even if you're not working and you have gone down to share a few drinks with your friends, then also you are thinking about your startup. If you are celebrating with your the family to with some some festival, it's again, it's always thinking about a startup. So even if you're not working, the thought process for taking the startup forward takes hold of your mind or thinking process for or for a majority of your time. And for my personal experience, for example, even if I switch off the lights at night, I do not get my sleep before 4 o'clock in the morning, and just because I just and I think it is with all founders. they think so much is that they lose sleep on top of it. So I think and I think the job of entrepreneur is not defined, which happens in a 9 to 5 job, wherein your process is very defined. You work on a focused type of a way. What happens is that with an entrepreneur is that what I feel is that you have to, so you know the end point, you know the target, but the journey is never a straight line. You have to take detours most often, and but when you take detours, you have to keep in mind that what your main goal is, and that is something at some point becomes quite challenging. And I also feel there is a huge difference between entrepreneurship and a 9 to 5 job uh, is a quick change of uh, for example, if now I'm talking with you, so after a meeting, I have another meeting with maybe a customer. So this change of context of meeting is very taxing. So what happens in this is that which I feel is not that taxing when to a 9 to 5 job when you have a focused job description, because you never know what challenges are going to come today. For example, a customer can or you get call from your operations team that things are not moving forward, or things are getting stuck. So you can never understand what are the risk points. You are always thrown with the problems which everybody has not been able to solve. So it gets channelized to you. So you solve the most critical problems, and I think that is mentally a bit taxing. And as far as other other is concerned, the highs are pretty low. You know, most of the time you try to solve problems, but the highs that you get from your running a startup is quite low. But having said this, the satisfaction that we get when a customer comes back and tells that would like to go forward with much more orders. Your product is working fine. Your product it has really stopped my wastages. Those little things actually make the day. So these are the little joys which actually keeps us going forward.
Okay, you mentioned about start point and end point in your answer. Speaking of end points, or sometimes we refer them as a vision of a founder. What I would like to ask, what is your vision with Tan90?
Correct. I think we have a long-term vision as well as we have a short-term vision, and we focus mostly on the short-term vision, and then we try to align themselves so that we can have a long-term vision. But if you really ask, what is the long-term vision, it's quite an ambitious project. So what we feel is that if somebody talks about cold chain logistics or cold chain supply, cold chain providers, uh, not only in India but in Southeast Asia, of within 8 to 10 years, if somebody thinks about it, the first name that should come across is Tan90, and that is something that we are really looking forward to, and that involves a lot amount of working very closely with customers, understand their problem, and they work on their problems and come up with a solution which can suit their problems. So that is what I was talking about before, is that market need is really important for any type of entrepreneurs, for any type of startup to scale up. um, that is a long term view, but on the short term view, we have very small short goals. For example, today we are in 11 states, so we are trying to reach out to about 15 states by the end of 2 months. And then, by the end of a year, we would like to expand our operations towards new different countries or entirely. So these are very small steps that we are trying to take forward. But I think if everything goes right, we should be able to meet our long-term goal that we have for about 10 years down the line.
I'm very curious. I think our audience would be very curious as well to know what is the how did the name came up, Tan90, and what is the thinking process behind that.
Sure. So, tan90 stands for infinity. So the trigonometric value of tan90 is infinity. And when we started off, I'll be very honest, we didn't have any specific idea on which we would like to be working on. And this is on a really initial stages. And we were at that point, we were gauging different problems. And what we understood is that there are infinite problems. And if we take up one problem and come up with a very good solution with it, it can have its repercussions, or it can have its impact on other problems as well. And I think if positioned correctly, one particular solution for a particular segment can have its impact on different segments as well. So I think the name Tan90 came from the infinite problems that we have that we have in front of us, and the whole idea is to solve a couple of problems in such a way that we can impact other segments as well, whose impact whose impacts are not measurable. For example, if I can if I can increase the income of a farmer, not only I am able to increase his financial stability, but the joy that I give it to him of selling everything everything that he has at his farm to the market, is that is infinite. So solving a problem at the grassroots gives you infinite happiness. So I think that is one of the major reasons why we chose the name 1090.
Okay. Perhaps my last question. How do you suggest our audience to start their journey as entrepreneurs?
Sure. One thing that I would suggest is that before you start anything, if you have an idea, please before doing anything or before starting anything, please run it through the market. And that is what I would like to really emphasize on, that it boils down to whether the market loves your product or not. If nobody cares about if you love your product or not, because if you love your product because it's your baby. So there are three mantras which I think I learned in during one of our case studies, is that if you have a good product and a good team, but the market is not good, then you lose. If you have a good team, if you have a bad product and the market is not good, you lose. If you have a good team and a good product and the market is ready to take it forward, then some magic happens. And that is where all the startups, if you really see, who just scaled up, there has been a market need for it. So the first thing is I will suggest is to do a customer discovery program. That is really important. Don't go by only research reports. Don't go by only surveys that you see on the net. Please go down at the ground level and talk to people. That is really important. Talk to people, understand their problems. Secondly is one thing that I think is that this is the right time to start up. And I would like to suggest starting up at a very early stage, because you have you don't have any you don't have any responsibilities, for example. So if you are starting up when you are still in college, if you are starting up when you're still studying, or you have just passed graduated from your college, that is a point where you don't have any responsibilities and you can take risks. So I think the time to start off is really at this point, wherein we have a very good amount of funding. I'm quite I'll be very honest that there is no dearth of funding till now. So if you start off now, and if your idea is good, the market potential, you will get funding. No issues with that at all. And a few things I would like to suggest is that it's a very hard journey. It's a very hard journey, and if you are not geared up for the long run, please don't do it. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you have to gauge your plans accordingly. So don't rush through it, because don't be impulsive with your decisions. So these are the few things which I would really suggest an entrepreneur while they are starting it up. And don't take failures personally. This is one thing that I have seen, is that don't take failures personally, and don't fall in love with your product. So what happens is that when you start to pick a product, and if you love it and love it to your core, and if somebody wants to tell that no, your product is not working, people take it personally and then they quit there. journey. So the first mantra is don't love your product at all. So the product will change, the market will change your product. You don't have to do anything. You just have to have a open mind and you keep your ears open to the market. Nothing else.
I think that is a very interesting message. But don't love your product. I have heard this multiple times from different entrepreneurs. They all say the same thing. Don't love your product. Otherwise, you'll get biased and will do a lot of mistakes while doing that. Uh,
Correct.
on that note, Soumalya, I'd like to close this session. If you have any final message to leave, you can leave it now. Otherwise, we'll close this session.
Thank you, Priyaranjan, for your for your platform. I think this platform can instigate other people to join the entrepreneurship journey, because this is something that we need right now. We need job givers, more of job givers than job seekers, and people who are who have a good educational background. These are the people who can actually come into bring the technology on board on the field. And I would like to really thank you to take it forward, to take the onus on your hand to encourage people to join the entrepreneurship journey. And I would also like to see in maybe in the comment section or somebody, if if there are some people who have heard in entrepreneur and they got instigated to join the entrepreneurship journey. And if that happens, if they get encouraged by any of our any of the entrepreneurs that you have interviewed, and if some people have got encouraged by that and joined the entrepreneurship journey, that is something that will make us really happy, infinitely happy.
Yeah, that is something I'll be very proud of as well. On that note, I'll close this session. It was a great pleasure to host you here at ELI. I think our audience would have got lifetime lessons from this video. Thanks for your time, Dr. Soumalya, and our best wishes for Tan90.
Thank you, Priyanjan, for your time. Thank you all. Stay safe all. Thank you.
Viewers, you can follow and connect with Dr. Soumalya on LinkedIn by typing Soumalya Mukherjee. So whom do you want to have here at ELI for next episode? Do let me know in comments below. We will be back. Stay tuned to ELI.